everyone. Welcome to the second season of For the Love of Books podcast featuring indie and small press authors with host Emma Pulova. November is the National Novel Writing Month, and our guest today is young adult author Melanie Hooyenga, who has been participating in the Writing Challenge since 2008. Melanie is a designer, jock, reader, beer and wine lover, wife, and puppy mama. At the end of the interview, Melanie will share the details of her book giveaway of Flickr. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you very much for having me.
Why did you decide to participate in Nano back in 2008, and how did you find out about the Writing Challenge?
So when I first heard about it, I had been considering writing a novel. I was actually living out of the country. I was living in Mexico with my ex-husband starting in 2007, and I was not working, and I decided I was going to write a novel. I had a lot of free time, and so I threw myself into researching the publishing industry, and this is when writer blogs and author blogs were really popular, and kind of got enveloped in that world. And NaNoWriMo was something people were talking about, and I had written a memoir as my first full-length manuscript, and then got this idea for a book and decided I would try Nano. And so, because I had the time and thought I would do it. And I'll say it's not as hard to meet those word count goals when you don't have a job. So, and my only responsibilities were making sure I cleaned the house and kept my husband fed. So it was not quite as challenging as it probably was for most people in the world who are participating in this.
So it was easy for you, would you say, back then?
It was back then, yes. As a writer, I wasn't as developed as I am now. So the things that I like about Nano, I really learned at that time. And it was, everything from how long I can write at one time before I'm done. Like I typically don't write 1,667 words in one sitting. 1,000 words at a time I can do, and that's pretty standard for me when I'm on a roll. Oftentimes it's 500 to 1,000. So I learned I need to write that in a couple different periods of time. Like I don't try to do it all at once. And that was something that took me several nanos to learn. And you also have to kind of let go of, you can't edit while you're writing or you're never going to make any progress. Right. And even now I struggle with that because I want it to be perfect. And that's not what this is about.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's a challenge in itself, right. Not to edit. Yep.
Right.
Why are you participating in the challenge this year? And mainly, how are you doing with your project?
So this is funny. So I'm working on my 13th novel, I think, right now. I've published 8. And last year around this time, I published a blog post called Nano No More. And I'm not doing Nano anymore because XYZ. And I gave all these reasons. And I've learned enough about, or not enough, but I've learned about myself, what I need to know. And there's no point. Well, the problem is I write about 1 book a year and I publish 1 book a year because I have a day job. And I keep publishing them kind of at the end of the summer, beginning of September. And that lines me up where first I take a break and then I'm doing research and I'm outlining and plotting. And it just kind of works out that I'm starting my new book in November. So once again, I found myself approaching this November deadline as I'm getting ready to start writing a book. And it just seems silly to not at least try to participate. So that's what I've done, despite the fact that I swear I don't need to do this anymore, but I love the camaraderie and I love, connecting with different people in a different way than we normally do. I have a lot of friends from Instagram that I'm connected with now on there, and that's not something we typically do. But the book that I'm working on, it's the 3rd book in my Campfire series. It's called Chasing the Moon. The first 2 were Chasing the Sun and Chasing the Stars. So we're keeping with a kind of space theme, but also outdoorsy camping thing. And as I mentioned right before we came on live or on air, I still have to do the research for this. It's the characters I feel like I know pretty well because a lot of them are from the previous books, but they're hiking in the Grand Canyon for 5 days. And so I need to research not only just, Grand Canyon, but hiking in the Grand Canyon and what do you carry and the guides. And so I've already talked to, I oddly had 2 school-age friends who have teenage daughters who recently hiked and camped. I don't know if they camped, they hiked in the Grand Canyon. And so I've talked with one of them already to kind of get their children's perspective on all of that. But I reached out to a few other friends who said that they've done some hiking. And so I need to set up calls with them to get kind of that personal input that you
And
can't
go
really
on
get
there.
just from looking online. I feel like anytime, I mean, that's true for anything Nano or not, but anytime you can get kind of a firsthand account of something, that's really helpful. But yeah, I need to basically look at pictures of the Grand Canyon, and I've heard there's a discovery session on hiking in the Grand Canyon or camping in there that I'm supposed to watch. So I'm hoping to watch that as well. But this book, I didn't even say what it's about, did I? So they're hiking in the Grand Canyon, and it's a dual POV. One of them, the side characters from Chasing the Stars, Melody, is now 18 years old, and she likes her best friend, who's a female. And it's the POV from her and the friend as they're on this trip with the families and other people, and kind of exploring what it means to go from friendship to something more. But also the main character is, she's a really popular video person. I think it's going to be on TikTok, but I try not to name actual social media accounts in my books because it just dates them. But essentially a viral TikToker type person who does science-based posts. And so there's this drama that somebody duetted her and went badly, and she's in the Grand Canyon and can't respond, and it's because there's no internet signal or whatever. So that's kind of the theme of it, and just kind of deciding. Yeah, I clearly can pitch my book because I haven't written it. So that's about all I have to say about it.
To what extent have you planned this book?
I've outlined it. I do a rough outline. I've always considered myself a plotter. As I've read up a little bit more, I might be more of like I'm not a pantser, but each chapter is like a paragraph, maybe a couple sentences that I say what's going to happen. And as I get further along, I may fill that out a little bit more, but I don't have like pages for each chapter. My chapter is only a few pages long. So, but I've done some extensive character development and figuring out, I like to figure out what is everybody's kind of like, what's their pain point? Like, what do they want? Why can't they have it? You know, what happens if they don't get it? Even the minor characters. One thing that a lot of readers have said is that that my side characters have a lot of depth as well. It's not just the main characters. And I really take pride in that. And it's because I think I take that little bit of time, and even if we don't get into it too much in the book, just knowing that they have this undercurrent going on and there's something challenging them, I think makes more well-rounded characters and makes it more interesting to read.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what tips can you give to the participating Rymos this year?
So one tip is what I said kind of already, is don't expect that you have to do it all in one sitting, especially if you're not used to writing this much. I prefer to write in the morning. I typically get up, start my day an hour sooner than I need to. That's my time. And my writing chair is right. You can't quite see it. It's right behind me.
Yeah, I can see it.
Well, I'm in my office chair, so I have another chair behind me. But I have this like chaise lounge thing, and that's my writing chair. And so I sit there for an hour, and some days I can write 1,000 words in that hour. And this morning, I think I wrote 500. And so ideally then, if you're working like I am, at lunch or after work or something like that, you try to get those few other words. One thing I tell people when I first started writing, I had really, really low word count goals for myself. I like daily goals, but it was like 100 words. And as you know, as a writer, like 100 words is nothing. Like that does not take very long to write. Really what it is, it's that trick of getting yourself to sit down and do it.
Exactly.
A little bit, yeah, you get going. I'm a big fan of motivators. So I think, I literally have, I realize that people listening can't see this, but I have a bag of Chewy Sprees literally right here. And I give myself one every 100 words.
So you reward yourself, right? I reward myself with chocolate.
I line them up next to my computer wherever I'm sitting. And every now and then I'll catch myself reaching for one before I hit the 100. I'm like, no. And it's a surprisingly good motivator. So,
it works.
Yeah. But other than that, one thing I do is, if you're stuck on a word, like, this isn't the right word, is I use brackets and I just put the next best thing in there. And that way, when I'm going back in my edits, I remember like, this isn't the word I want. And usually I know it when I read it that isn't what I wanted. But doing that serves as a visual cue, and it allows me to know like, okay, I've made that note. I know this isn't right, but I can keep going and it's not going to stop me. Because you can get hung up so quickly, like going to thesaurus.com and what are all the options for the word discovery? Like what can I have? And, so really anything to keep yourself focused. I've resorted to throwing my phone across the room so that I can't check my phone while I'm trying to write. It's a bad habit that I have. So, really just, lower your expectations of what you're doing, and then, but increase your expectations to stay with it, so don't expect perfection, but expect dedication, if that makes sense. So.
And how did you get rid of the tendency to constantly edit after yourself? I've been struggling with that too, and that just slows you down overall.
Yeah, it's tough. And sometimes I'll catch myself and I'm like, what are you doing? You've been staring at this page for 10 minutes. Like, no. And I give myself 1 minute, and sometimes it just takes getting back into that habit. I hadn't been writing since the summer when I finished my last book. So for me, it's not only trying to write this daily word goal, it's just getting back in the habit of writing again. I have to catch myself when I realize I've paused and say, like, no, we'll do this later. Like, you're not doing this right now. And sometimes, just put a sticky note on the edge of your computer that says, keep going, don't stop. It's okay if it's not perfect.
Yeah. So how has Nano helped you reach your goals?
It's taught me a lot, like I said, about like what kind of a writer I am, how I function as a writer. When I first started writing, I said I lived in Mexico, I wasn't working, and say my goal was 1,000 words. So I'd write my 1,000 words, and then I'd be like, oh, well, maybe I can get another 200. And so I'd sit there, and my brain doesn't like that. And I didn't know it at the time. And so I would go from having a productive, 1.5 hour writing session to sitting there for 3 hours and feeling defeated because I couldn't get those last 200 words. And it took me several books to learn that about myself. There's other people, they're like, oh, I crank out 5,000 words a day. I'm like, I can't sit still that long. Like, I get distracted and it does not work.
I can't do it.
No, and that's okay. And I think, it's too easy. This is another big thing too, is, don't compare yourself to other writers. It's really hard not to, especially with Nano.
That's big. That one is really big.
Well, and especially you have buddies, and I'm looking at my buddy list, and half of them are in like the 30,000s already with their word count. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm about to hit 10,000. I am not there. I'm supposed to be at like 12. No, I'm supposed to be at 18,000 right now. I'm at like half. I'm half of what I'm supposed to be at right now. But it just, yeah, you just kind of, the benefits there, I think, is just, really learning about yourself, but it translates into other things. And I've done school visits where I talk to kind of like middle school age kids. And one of the things I talk to them about is how to tackle a big project. So whether it's learning a new sport or a new instrument, or you're studying lines for a play. And, I don't make it all about writing, because not everybody in school likes to write. But I say, you take this huge thing, and of course it's going to be intimidating, but if you break it down into smaller steps, you can approach it better. And so I've really kind of lived by that with whatever it is. If I have purple walls behind me and I painted my room. And so the first step is you pick out the paint. The next step is you put the tape, and then you have to like everything, whatever. And so it's not paint the room, it's, one step at a time. And then, now we do the first coat, or we do like the first wall, and, it's a pretty basic concept, but it really helps me. And, I recently started a new job, and I was under a lot of stress at my previous job while looking for a new job and having other things going on. But it's like, nope, but applying for jobs is step one. Like, I can't leave to like do that. Like, I have to do that part. And, and it's stressful, but it won't be like this forever. And so, keeping your end goal in mind is helpful too. And, reward yourself. Like, it doesn't have to be candy. It could be other things.
But it can be.
And if you have that time, and, especially on a weekend, if you, write 500 words and go walk around the block, or, I've started doing like jumping jacks and stuff during the day, because I'm working at home now, and I'm in this room all day long, and I need to move around. So I'll get up and do jumping jacks, or, kick my legs around or something, just to reward myself from doing that work. And then you sit back down and do it again.
Yeah. I go for a walk.
Yeah.
And then write again. When I come back from a walk, I write again. Okay. How many books have you published based on your Nano participation?
Oh, geez. I think 4.
Okay.
So, and it's tough because all of them well, not all of them, but since publishing the first book, all the books that I've worked on for Nano, I've published. So I may not have won Nano, meaning I didn't hit the 50,000 word count goal at the end of the month. I did finish the book and I did publish it.
Okay.
Now the first one that I published, I did complete in that time. I won then. There were a couple that I won, but yeah. So of the actual winners, I'll say 4, I think. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So today we'll be talking about your Nano 2010 book, Flickr. Tell us all about it. What inspired you to write this book?
So Flickr is about a girl who uses sunlight to go back to yesterday. So it starts off where she uses her ability to fix silly things. So if she gets in a fight with her friends or fails a test, she can go back and change it. And in Flickr, there's a mystery where girls in her town start disappearing, and she realizes she could help them, but she'd have to tell someone her secret. So I got the idea, and the flickering comes from, so if you've ever been in a car driving on a sunny day and the sun comes through the trees above you and there's like a strobe light effect, it really messes with my head. Like I sometimes feel like I'm going to have convulsions, like, it's really bad. Like I have to shield my eyes, and it's not even just in a car, but usually it is in a car because you're going fast enough. And I was in Detroit going to visit my grandma and driving when all of a sudden I'm like, what if there's a girl who, when this happens, she goes back to yesterday? Like it literally just like popped in my head.
Nice.
And
I like that.
I know. So I was like, what? Like, I don't write things like this. I write contemporary books. So I wrote a trilogy. That Flickr is the first book in the series, but I still swear that I'm not a science fiction writer. Whenever I'm at events and I talk to people and say it's time travel, they're like, "Oh, I love time travel." I'm like, you might not like my book because it's more about what happens when she goes back, and she only goes back to yesterday. It's not like she can pick and choose or anything like that. But yeah, I got the idea. I had not written young adult before, but my previous books, I had teenage protagonists, and some friends had suggested perhaps I try young adult. This is around the time when Twilight was really big. And so, I was new to the genre, but I was like, hey, why not? And I'm like, let's try first person present tense while we're at it. So I did all that and just loved it and realized, so that's what I write. I write first person present tense. I love the immediacy of it. You can't dawdle on a whole lot of things because you're just basically stuck in the character's head if you're doing that. There's certainly limitations, but yeah, I really enjoyed that and did a lot of research. There's something called the Buca Effect. I think I have it in the beginning of my book. That's something they see in helicopter pilots. So, you think about a helicopter, it's got the steady rotation of the rotors and the sunlight coming through. Certain pilots, it affects them the way it affects me, and they can't be pilots basically, or they can't fly a helicopter. There isn't a known cure for it. It's just something, Flickr vertigo is another word for it, which is, how I landed on using Flickr for her, what she calls her ability, and what I named the book. But I will say, when you use a common word for the title of your book and for a syndrome, you can't use it in any other context in that book. So, so Flickr, I can't refer to flickering lights or anything like that because it confuses the reader. So for 3 books, I couldn't use that word. And so in my next book after that, I'm like, I get to use Flickr again.
So what was the biggest challenge in writing Flickr?
I was thinking about this earlier today, knowing you'd ask something along this line. And I think the writing wasn't the challenge. Like I really enjoyed that. And getting into that character's head and just kind of the whole thing of it. For me, I was newly divorced, living in my parents' basement with a puppy. So like, I just remember, and I was at a job I didn't like, but I would bring my computer at lunch and I'd write at lunch, and then I'd come home and I'd write real quick after work, and just find these little pockets of time to do it. But I remember, I feel like it was more my like life circumstances that were challenging than it was anything with the actual story. It was a completely different concept for me. And so, there was some learning to go along that way, but I really enjoyed the writing part of it.
What have you learned about yourself from writing this book, from writing Flickr?
I think that I can come up with a cool idea that really puzzles agents. No, I'm kidding. I queried this one, so I ended up self-publishing it, but I did query it for about 1.5 years, and several agents had the full book. And it's, if you know anything about the publishing industry, it's that it's a business at the bottom end of the day. And if an agent doesn't know how to market, if they don't know how to market your book, and it's, it's considered kind of a magical realism, but that was a little bit before that was really becoming a thing. I didn't know what to call it. I don't know why I thought an agent would. So I never got any bad feedback. It was just, I don't know what to do with this. So, which is why I ultimately decided to self-publish it. But I think, yeah, it was the first one I published, and I did the cover myself, and I had some help with the formatting at the time. Now I do all my own formatting, but it just, having that finished product in your hands and knowing like I could do it, like that's really what started this whole thing for me. I'm, like I said, I just published my 8th novel in September or August. And, I don't see myself stopping. It's like, sometimes it's not necessarily lucrative for me, but I enjoy it. And I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. I don't, that's not even
I
something.
hope not. You have to keep on going. We all have to keep on going.
I tell you, there's days that I'm like, how do people have free time to just sit around and do X, Y, Z? And I'm like, oh, because they're probably not like having a job and writing books and doing this. And so sometimes I think like, oh, but my life was so much simpler when I didn't do this. But I love it. And I love the community and just everything about it. So that's not going away.
What sets you apart from other authors in your genre?
I think I write really good dialogue, and that's not to say other people write bad dialogue, but that's another thing that people have really commented on. And I've had people ask, like, do you listen to people when you're out? And like, I haven't been out in 2 years. Like, I have a little bit, but no, I'm a social person and I like to talk. And so I feel like I have a good ear for that. And I listen when I'm, watching TV or movies and things like that, and just how people say things. But I did study it a bit in terms of knowing that you drop all the little, hi, how you doing? I'm good. How are you? It's like, hey, you come in and say, hey, and you're like, why did you do that? Like, just jump into the conversation. You don't
jump in.
Yeah. And there's a lot of little filler words that you don't need to include, that sometimes people do. So I feel like that's the part. And like I mentioned, my sub characters, are always really well-rounded. I've inadvertently started this thing where like the best friend always upstages everybody. Like I don't need to. But my best friends are all awesome. Like I love them. Or like in one of my books, it's the brother, so it's not quite the best friend. But I just put on Twitter the other day, because this is the 3rd book in the series that I'm writing, and one of the characters who's everybody loved from the 1st and 2nd book, he finally entered the scene. And so I screenshot that little bar. I'm like, Theo has entered the book, and everyone's like, yay! So, yeah.
So, what are the major takeaways from your book?
From Flickr?
From Flickr, yes.
In terms of me as a writer, or just the book itself?
The book itself.
So I think, and really looking at it as bigger as a whole series, because in the 1st book, she's looking at this ability that she has as more of an affliction, as something bad, it's something she doesn't want other people to know about. She's afraid for her parents to know, because she gets, here I didn't mention, she gets really bad migraines when she gets back to her present time. So say it's like Friday afternoon and she flickers and she goes back to Thursday. When she gets back to that point in time on Friday, she's hit down with a really bad migraine. Now while she doesn't understand it, she knows why she's getting them, but she doesn't want to go to the doctor, or go to the hospital, or run tests, because she doesn't know what they're going to find. And so she's got medication for migraines, but she really tries to play it down, even though like she can't function. It's not like I get migraines and I can still kind of get through my day, but she has to be in bed. So in the 1st book, she's really, scared about being different and other people knowing that. And by the end of the 1st book, she's learning that she can help other people, but she has to trust other people to tell, she has to share her secret in order to be able to help these other people. And through this series, this isn't really spoiling anything, like through the series, she comes to see this as an ability and something that she can actually help other people with, and not just be selfish. And some of that, like coming from the team perspective, it's, as you get older, you learn that too. Like everything is very much self-centered and about yourself and how it affects you. And as you get older and you get more mature, you learn, oh, my actions affect other people, and I can choose whether that's a positive or a negative thing. So I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. And so we kind of touched on what inspired the title Flickr, and that you can never ever use it in that particular book, which is both good and bad, right?
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to read to us from Flickr?
So the book opens with a prologue, which is only like 2 pages. So I'll watch the time, but I may read the first couple pages of the 1st chapter too. So here we go. Sunlight pulses across the dashboard, light, dark, and catches the dust dancing on the imitation leather. My eyes stutter, but I blink it away. My heart jumps in and around my chest. I stroke the grainy piece of cement stuck between my back teeth with my tongue. The orthodontist swore he got it all, but that was as true as his promise that it wouldn't be uncomfortable. Right. A tingling sensation pricks the tips of my fingers. I press them together, watching the blood shift beneath my skin. The tingling turns to those sharp needles that remind me of anything but sleep. I press harder and my toes start tingling too. What the hell? The dancing on the dashboard gets faster. The trees here are taller, straighter, and the sunlight strobes through the branches. My breath catches and a sudden heaviness pushes me deep into the seat. I glance at Mom, but she's concentrating on the road, humming along with the golden oldies or whatever the hell it is she listens to, oblivious to the fact that something very weird is happening to her daughter, to me. I close my eyes. The heaviness lifts. Too much. Now I'm floating but Mom, I'm fine. Mom crosses the kitchen and leans against the counter. Biz, you're going. The dentist said your face will change if you don't get braces. Your entire face could look different. A sense of deja vu slams me over the head. I've had this argument. Next, Mom's going to grab the stack of mail that Dad left on the counter and toss it in the basket. She does. Biz? The words tumble out of me. Mom? The deja vu doesn't lift. This isn't a memory. I'm not in the car anymore. I've gone back to yesterday. So that's the prologue. So do you want me to read the first couple pages too? Do we have time for that?
Sure. Yeah, we have a little bit of time.
Okay, I'll be quick. All right, so chapter 1. I've been flickering, jumping back to yesterday, since I was 13. The first time I thought the orthodontist gave me more laughing gas than he was supposed to, but in the 4 years since then, I figured out that I can use the light to my advantage. I've retaken tests, undone fights with friends, and repeated more than a few memorable dates. Unfortunately, this is not one of those times. Music blares from a speaker in the corner of the gymnasium, the heavy bass vibrating through me and everyone else flailing on the dance floor. A disco ball throws flashes of light spiraling off every surface in the room. I throw my head back and close my eyes, pretending to lose myself in the music, when really I'm just trying to block out the damn light. I love this song. Amelia, my best friend, grabs my arm and bounces next to me. Her wavy dark hair sways with the music, unlike mine, which hangs limp over my shoulders. My eyes open a slit. Didn't disco balls go out in the 70s? She laughs, a throaty giggle that makes me smile. So keep your eyes closed. I won't let you run into anyone. Yeah, right. I sway next to Amelia, scanning the crowd for Robbie, my boyfriend, and spot him against the far wall laughing with a couple friends. His blonde hair practically glows in the blinking lights. He notices me watching him and smiles. As I lift my hand to give a half-hearted wave, a low chuckle behind me makes me turn. How long did you promise to dance? Cameron, my other best friend, stands flat-footed with his arms crossed, indifferent to the movement surrounding us. His dark eyes twinkle, a smile lifting the corner of his mouth. Amelia spins, sending her hair flying. 3 songs. This is number 2. And thank God it's almost over. She laughs. Come on, Biz, you love it. She throws an arm over my shoulder and we knock hips. Cam nods at our friends near Robbie. I'll be over there. The song ends and the blinking lights slow to a lazy loop around the room. Crap. I also promised Robbie one slow dance, and from the look on his face as he weaves through the couples already pressed together, I'm not getting out of this. He smiles. They're playing our song. We don't have a song. I know, but I requested it, so that makes it our song. His lips graze my cheek and he places my hands behind his neck. Our bodies brush as we turn in a small circle. Is this really so bad? He whispers. No. I rest my head against his shoulder. My eyes close, but my thoughts are anything but relaxed. This is supposed to be what I want. A boy who wants to dance with me and spend time with me and seems to think I'm cute. So why do I feel so antsy when he's around? I mean, I know why. He's hardly the first boy I've dated, and I always get this feeling after a couple months. But why can't I just be happy? And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you like to give us the details of your book giveaway?
Yes, so I'm giving away, and I've forgotten, did we say a print or an ebook? I think we said, did we say print copy? But in
I
the
think
US?
we said print.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, so if you're watching this, it happened to be, here's a copy of Flickr. And yeah, we'll be giving away one copy to anyone who lives in the continental US, but I don't know how we're entering. How are we doing that?
The first person who emails you about the book with their address will get the book.
Great.
So that is our giveaway.
Perfect.
And before we do our parting shots, I would like to thank our sponsors, Doc Chavent and Digital Quill Services for Writers with author Kali Nye. Melanie, would you like to give us your parting shots?
My parting shot. If you've got a story in you, just write it and don't worry about everybody else or what they're doing. Just stay focused on yourself and do come up for air and celebrate with your friends then. But keep at it. And at the end of the day, you know, or at the end of the year, you'll have a book. So, and it's the best feeling in the world.
All right, and here are mine. Buy indie, read indie, and write indie. Keep your fingers on the keyboard and your butt in the chair. Log in your word count daily to win the Nano 50K challenge, because you too can become a published author. Listen in on major podcasting apps like iHeart, Stitcher, and many more. Podbean. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you very much.